What's up, guys? This is going to be the first video from a series of 3 of playing courses in Eastern Washington. This is going to be James Lawless Park in Richland, Washington. And these are the first times that I've ever played these courses. So starting off with James Lawless Park, as I mentioned, this was our first day in Eastern Washington, and we had just driven up this morning and really wanted to get in around, so we did. Maybe a little questionable timing on our part though, as it is in the middle of July, and we got out to the course around 2 or 3 o'clock if I'm not mistaken, which means in the middle of the heat. So we were playing in very hot temperatures. If I remember correctly, we were playing in about 36 degrees of heat, 36 Celsius that is, and very different style of disc golf that I'm used to, at least. And I'm gonna apologize now already, and this will come up later as well, with the style of course that this is with all these shrubs. It was very hard to film some shots where I even had blind shots to the baskets, and there's not a lot I can do about that, unfortunately. Another thing I will mention is that I found it interesting how the distances were very hard to gauge, especially for the holes where you could see the basket. I tried using the T-pad signs to give some indication, but I remember this hole specifically said it was 350 feet, and the U-disc, if I remember correctly, said around 270 feet. So it was really hard to tell what to throw based off that, seeing as though it was my first time ever out here. Going back at it now, hole 3, I would definitely be throwing a fairway. I'd probably be throwing my Explorer or something similar. Hole 4, another hole that definitely requires you to know your aiming point. Playing this for the first time, I did not aim nearly as far right as I should have. Best point of reference would be to pick a building off into the distance, or sometimes when you have parked cars along the street, to gauge it off of that. No harm, no foul there though. Take an easy par and move on. Hole 5, I do remember, was specifically playing to a different... Oh, no, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hole 6 was playing to a different pin position. Hole 5 was just another example of the distances being a little bit off. I remember throwing my harp here, just a harp backhand hyzer, trying to get up there for a putt, give myself a decent chance. Just chain out right side. And that keeps me at +1 with the unforced error on hole 1. Hole 6 was playing to a different pin position, which was playing a lot closer to 200 feet, but again, really hard to tell how far it actually was. I was looking to hang this sidearm out a lot further left, and it left me with this death putt here. But seeing as though it's a casual round, I really like running these difficult putts and challenging myself. Fortunately for me, I converted, which means that it's definitely helping my score out. And then hole 7, if I'm not mistaken, was the longest hole on the course. So I was just looking to throw as far as I could. Remember there being a little bit of wind, so I did have to disc up a little bit to a more stable wraith in my bag. And then poke and pray with the jump putt. Try to give it a little bit of height to see. Maybe it goes in, maybe it doesn't. And then take my par. Hole 8 was really hard to gauge, stepping up to the tee, how high you want to throw it. Best way I could describe hole 8 is it's like a little cove that you have to enter this main gap off to the right side, or you can try crash in if you throw a lot higher of a shot. I was trying to throw my Bard, just an overstable mid, try to glide it in there, but left it a little low. And player B makes the putt, but that doesn't help my score out. Hole 9, a very fun hole. This is like a mini top of the world shot, just trying to throw a backhand hyzer with my harp. Aim it far out to the right to make sure not to go early left into the bushes, and hopefully you saw a little bit of the disc through those barriers. I left myself relatively close and convert for the birdie. Moving on to hole 10. Hole 10, you just claiming it as a 255-foot shot. I believe that was 68 meters. Clear left to right initial shot shape. Ideally, you'd like to have something flex out at the end. I emphasized the going right part and unfortunately just grip blocked it a little bit too much into the trees, leaving myself with this upshot and this putt for par. I will say that hole was a lot more uphill than I initially expected. Hole 11, it says it's 356 feet, definitely does not play 356. It is the slightest bit downhill, but it's also a lot more exposed, meaning that there's a lot of wind in play here, or at least when we did play. I'm not sure how windy it usually gets here. And it left me with this poke and pray jump putt. You can see the tag of the basket there where my dad's standing. Hole 12, similar shot as to hole 11. Again, the distance saying what it is, it's at 318. I think this one plays actually a little bit longer maybe than the last hole. And same unforced error here, just exposing that flight paint, and that wind got a hold of it, pushed the disc so far off to the right side, leaving me with a blind approach. And at this point I didn't even know how close I was. Fortunately, I gave myself a putt just outside of circle 1 and do convert to keep myself under par. Hole 13, a very cool, another top of the world shot, or a mini top of the world shot, coming in at just over 350 feet. I was trying to throw my EMAC Truth on a touchy little hyzer flip line, more direct, and just pull that over to the right. Really never stood a chance out of the hand. Just got caught on my hand and didn't fly how I wanted it to. Leaving myself with a pitch up with my berg. If I don't have a putt for birdie, I try and make sure that I'm at least guaranteeing myself these pars. You don't want to be bogeying any of these holes out here. Not necessarily a birdie or die course, but you want to give yourself as many opportunities as possible and then convert wherever you can, but you can't expect to get them all, especially with these elevation changes. This was a good example of a hole being a lot more uphill than it had initially seemed. I was throwing my Explorer, but thinking back at it now, I would probably disc up if I could, just to make sure I push up that hill and maybe give myself a look level with the basket. Hole 15, you just claiming it's 296 feet. Definitely a lot shorter. I would have personally guessed it playing as like 250. I was throwing a Justice on a sidearm flex shot here, trying to ace run it, and ended up long right and have a good putt for birdie here. Nice and open. Fortunately didn't go into the shrubs there. And convert, putting me at -2. Hole 16 is a very similar shape to hole 15, what I just played, but this is slightly downhill, playing along the slope. So I'm throwing a volt here, which is something I was testing out in place of my Thunderbirds. A little bit here and there. This was a lucky drive to not go further into the brushes. Unfortunately, I didn't frame the putt properly with the brushes being in the way, but I did make that putt, putting me at -3. Hole 17 seems like a really simple hyzer. I just up to mid just to make sure to get there because it is uphill, and at this point we were getting really tired, especially with that heat. It felt so tiring out there throwing, and energy was low at this point. And player B converting the putt. Hole 18, very cool finishing hole, a blind shot actually, but there are these stairs that you can walk up to watch other people throw, which is where the camera is placed right now. I'm trying to throw my reco just nice and straight. Left it a little bit high so it does stall out just above the basket. Left myself with a tricky putt, with some brush to putt over. It was a little bit in the way, but with my natural nose down putt, it worked out perfectly fine, and I ended up making it, putting me at -4, shooting an even 50. If you enjoyed what you just watched, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.